Good morning. The Senate Finance Committee will come to order. It's March 22nd. Remember, it's my granddaughter's birthday. Jermaine. Yeah, very fun. FaceTimed her. For the record, we do have a quorum. First off, I'd like to thank Senator Tomassoni for the donuts. He understands the rule of thumb that the first time in front of the Finance Committee, you bring donuts. And so there's some IOUs out here at the testifying table. And I'd like to thank Laura Bach too, because I know these came probably from that Maplewood Bakery and they are outstanding. So please, anybody who wants some, they're in the back. She brought plenty and I really appreciate it. Thank you, Senator Tomassoni, for those donuts. We love you dearly. First, we're going to start with Senate File 2786, Senator Housley and Senator Abler. We have a couple amendments. Members, this was in front of our committee 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, and we heard about this bill. We have some amendments, and now we have a fiscal note in front of us, which we did not have before. So with that, Mr. Albrecht, would you like to go through the fiscal note and the amendments too, if you'd like?
Good morning, Madam Chair. In which order?
I'm sorry?
In which order?
Let's do the fiscal note first.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the amendments match the fiscal note, is that correct?
Not exactly,
Okay.
but it includes all the amounts in the fiscal note.
Okay, well, you know what? Maybe we'll do the amendments first then, Mr. Albrecht.
Okay.
Yeah.
Geez, I'm not sure I'm like the best person to talk about this stuff before, but I understand it's pretty much technical, like 1.3 down to 1.14 are just clarifying the eligibility for the grants that are in the bill. And then on line 1.15 is deleting section 4, which I believe is the temporary staffing pool, which was in the bill that was sent to the governor yesterday.
Mr. Albrecht, you're on the A16th amendment, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And members, you should have that in your packet, and it's been posted.
So to be clear, the A16 modifies the A15. And then lines 1.16 to 1.21, this is the place where the amendment differs from the fiscal note in that the fiscal note assumes that the administrative money for the grant programs would be added on top of the total amount of grants. And the amendment includes the administrative money in the total amount for the grant program. And you can see that's going on line 1.17, 1.18, where it says of the total $266 million that was previously in the bill for the grants, now the grants are $259 million and the administration is $10.2 million. And then that total of $10.2 million is reduced by $3.3 million on line 1.20, and that's the federal matching money for administrative costs. And then lines 1.22 to 1.26 is the appropriation for the DWRS after model adjustment. That's consistent with the fiscal note, 54.465 million, with a small amount for a systems cost. And on page 2 at the top is the appropriation to the Department of Health for the Voluntary Technical Assistance Program for nursing facilities, and that's a $47,000 administrative cost. And then, Madam Chair, if you want to switch to the fiscal note, I think it's probably easiest to just go to the DHS section, which begins on page 3, and the totals there are self-explanatory, I hope. On page 4, under the assumptions, there's the explanation there. The initial PACE funding is administrative funding to plan for and present to the legislature recommendations for implementing the PACE program. Then on page 5 is the analysis for section 2, the long-term services and supports workforce grants. And in the middle of the page, I would draw your attention to the bold print there that talks about what they believe, what the department believes are the likely implementation timelines for these grants, which do differ from the language in the bill. And that follows through to the bottom too, with respect to the administrative money needing to carry forward, which the amendment accomplishes. Then on page 6 is the explanation for section 3. This is the temporary 13.3% DWRS framework payment adjustment, and that all conforms with the assumptions in the fiscal note. And then section 4 has been removed. So the overall summary begins on page 7. And the first section there, section 1, shows how the funding breaks down for the PACE program. Section 3 Section 2 begins at the very bottom of page 7. And then the amounts that go with that section are at the top of page 8, and then section 3 is in the middle of page 8, and I would, so the summary on page 9, the appropriations actually differ a little bit from the way the information is presented here. What the amendment does is it groups all of the admin costs for 22, 23, 24, and 25, appropriates the total in 2022, 2, and makes it available until the end of 2025.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Albrecht. I was just going to say, are we still on the A16 amendment in the fiscal note then?
Yes,
or did you?
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Don't see any questions on that.
Madam Chair.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Madam Chair, I move the A15 amendment to Senate File 2786.
Senator Ingebrigtsen, let's hold off on that for a second. Mr. Albrecht, can you go through the A15 amendment, please? Because apparently the A16 modifies the A15.
I can try.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Madam Chair, before we go to the A15, I did not go over the Department of Health section of the fiscal note, which begins on page 10 and on page 11 describes the administrative work that they would do to establish the technical assistance program for certain for nursing facilities. It's pretty straightforward, a $47,000 administrative cost. And then to the A15 amendment, lines 1.3 to 1.12 are the direction to the commissioner to plan for the PACE funding. Lines 1.13 all the way Senator Benson here? No. So 1.13 to 6.1. are the grant program. Some changes since this bill was here before, responded to Senator Benson's concerns about possibility of fraud and ways to prevent it, and those are on page 5, on lines 5.13, 5.21, and 5.29. And then on page 6, section 3, talks about the instruction for the DWRS framework after model adjustment of 13.3%. You can see that amount on line 6.5. Section 4 on line 6.10 has been deleted with the amendment. And Section 5 and Section 6 are the Department of Health provisions. That's on line 8.13 and line 9.4 and also 9.27. And then the A16 replaces the appropriations on lines 10.9 until the end, leaving out section 10 because that's the temporary staffing pool, which was in the bill that was sent yesterday to the governor.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Albrecht. Are there any questions?
Madam Chair, I do have a question.
Senator Ritson.
Mr. Albright, section 5, you said expedited registration for a lapsed nursing home license. Is there a cost to that
Mr. Albrecht.
on page 8?
I don't know if there's a cost specifically for section 5. That is one of the requirements for the Department of Health, all of which are addressed in, is that the Board of Nursing?
That's fine.
Madam Chair and Senator Ingebrigtsen, the fiscal note was not assigned to the Board of Nursing, so I assume that means they don't have a cost.
Thank you. With that, Madam Chair,
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
I offer the A15 amendment.
Senator Ingebrigtsen moves the A15 amendment.
Madam Chair, I believe staff and/or the author has already explained that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Any questions? Okay. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is that the A15 amendment as amended by the A16 amendment?
Not yet.
No,
Okay.
not yet. Just the A15. So all those in favor of the A15 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Choking on your
I
donut.
went- It's not true, cops don't eat donuts, so I just wanted to we inhale them. Excuse me.
Take your time. Take your
Madam-
time.
Madam Chair, I offer the A16 amendment.
Senator Ingebrigtsen moves the A16 amendment. Any questions? All those in favor of the A16 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Okay, before us, we have the amended Senate File 2786. Senator Housley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for not bringing donuts on my third time before the Finance Committee. I know I have been officially donut shamed.
You can make up for that.
I will definitely make up for the donut shame.
Shame.
Thank you so much for amending Senate File 2786. As we heard back on March 3rd, the importance of this bill for our long-term care facilities and our group homes. This is the rescue package to help retain and recruit folks to be working in our long-term care facilities. So we already heard all of that, and I think we've got the amendment, so I think it's packaged up and ready to go. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Housley, for carrying this. Senator Abler.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the committee's attention to this. And I just want to offer a couple comments, and I appreciate the fiscal has been worked out. We stayed within the money that we had put aside, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the commitment of the Senate on a bipartisan basis to put $322 million altogether, $320 million in this bill toward remedying the most critical time in probably the career of group homes, nursing homes, assisted livings, intermediate care facilities, and the like. People are literally being put out today. I get emails, several emails a week. What am I going to do with my daughter? Home care, and even people in their own homes. I mean, I forgot those other two pots. Tens of thousands of people are at risk of being affected, and it truly is a crisis. And I want to thank the governor for, in his original package, he had $115 million. He realized that it was a little light, so he's up to $268, I think, now. But in the bill they brought forward, it'll be implemented in January. And there's a war on, as it were. There's a crisis. And I'm disappointed, I have to say, in the fiscal note that the department says they can get these grant forms out in 6 to 8 months and then get checks out 2 months later. Does nobody realize that this is a crisis? And people being put out actually could come to harm or die. When we did the, if you remember in 2011, when the impossible could not be done, when Governor Dayton put the expansion plan into place in about 3 months, they said it would take 6 months or longer. They got it done. We have to get this done. We're giving the department $10 million to spend 8 to 10 months sitting around getting this going, and it is just totally wrong. And so we are hamstrung by our own well-intended bureaucracy. And this, I appreciate the governor moving forward and realizing this may be an issue, and at least getting closer to the amount of money we're willing to spend. But this is a crisis. And so just wanted to comment about that. And we can't do business as usual. We cannot. Or they should just give me his private phone number, and I'll have these people that are writing me write him, and maybe he'll get on the department to get going. I know that they have to follow all their rules, but this is meant to be simple. We'll write it simpler. Every entity that Senator Benson was concerned about fraud, and so am I. So there's triple damages if they mess up. And frankly, by the time this gets going, 8 to 10 months, all the fraudsters will be dead of old age. And so I'm just, we've got to find a way to get this done. And this committee and the Senate is truly interested. We wrote the language for 30 days, and I can't see why it can't be done that way. So thank you, Madam Chair, and the committee. Really appreciate the Senate's attention to this.
Thank you, Senator
very
Abler.
much.
We do have a question, Senator Marty.
Madam Chair, just a comment, and that is that I really think that we all recognize the crisis here, but I think there are lots of ways of getting at this. I do think that the what was called hero pay would help a whole lot to help some of these folks. This bill isn't to fix either. You're trying to deal with a short-term thing, and I understand that. I think there are plenty of things we could be doing and should have done a long time ago. So I don't think it's appropriate to say that the Senate is really concerned about this and others aren't. I think others have been trying to move forward other ways of helping address this shortage. And it is a critical shortage, and I don't think anybody disagrees with that. I just think that saying that this is the one way to do it and so on is not appropriate. It's not fair to say, and frankly, I think the Senate's been the slow one in terms of dealing with the worker pay.
Thank you, Senator Marty. Senator Kemp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my comments sort of follow up to what I said when we heard this bill the first time. We obviously all know, and Senator Abler and Senator Housley, you both articulated so much the need. We all are hearing about the challenges in our own communities and that families in our own districts are facing because of these shortages. And we absolutely have to look at this seriously and urgently. But my concern, as I expressed before, is that this is a short-term solution. These are grants, these are bonuses, these are one-time things. And this is not new. I mean, the crisis, this level is new and urgent, but we've all known for years that the shortage, the pay shortages were a real problem in this area. And so I'm concerned now to look and see that this is not just a Band-Aid, it's a really expensive Band-Aid. And we should be looking at making investments that will go on and sustain these workers and these industries into the future. This is a serious issue, and and again, it goes back to part of the conversation that we had. We don't know how this is all fitting together. Madam Chair, you said we will not have targets, so the sense of there's a plan and we're going to spend, it's like in your business budget or your family budget, and you're just like, oh, that looks good, I'm going to go spend that money. And then he's, oh, that looks like good, that's the thing we need, let's go spend that money. And then you've spent the money and you realize, wait a minute, we didn't address some other important things. So there's no roadmap here. This absolutely is needs to be one of our highest priorities, to take care of this workforce challenge. But how it fits in the bigger puzzle, to me, is another really big question, and how we're going to get there is very opaque, I think. So, but thank you. Well, let's keep working on it.
Thank you, Senator Kent.
Madam Chair.
Briefly, Senator.
Oh, yeah, I know
Yeah.
briefly, but we were kind of discussing the bill, but I want to remind people.
Well, we have a lot of bills
I know you do, I'll
that we
just
have
be
to
very
attend
brief.
to.
But I want to remind that the governor and we agree to do something in the short term. My concern is it's going to take forever. And by the time we get to the end of the short term, a lot of harm will have happened. But I want to remind members also, this bill has 20,000 people hired and trained, and also has many other elements as well, just to remind us that, and I wasn't trying to pick a fight, I was just trying to get somebody
We're
to
not
care about
fighting.
the speed.
I'm just
Madam
saying we
Chair.
have a lot
I'm
of
not
other-
talking about you, I'm talking about the other debate. I'm done, Madam Chair, thanks. I
Thank
got
you,
no
Senator.
fight with you.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Senator Benson, would you like to move the bill?
Madam Chair, I will move Senate File 2786 as amended be recommended to pass and placed on general orders.
On that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
No.
Motion prevails. The bill does pass and placed on general orders.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you very
Madam
much, too. Please get some donuts.
We're fighting.
Yeah. Senator Newman, Senate File 3081. And Senator Howell, yes, please come up, both of you. We're going to address both of these bills. And
This seat's warm. Yeah. I got doubled up, I think.
You have this, this just came through.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet. I just see
It's
it.
basically the same as our numbers.
thank you, members, and thank you, Senator Newman. We have your Senate File 3081 before us, but we also have, and we will be talking about Senate File 3086, which is Senator Howe's bill. Very similar, except with one major change, but not, I mean, it's significant, but it is a little bit different, and that's why we posted 3081, Senator Newman's. We're going to hear both of these. We're going to lay them on the table. I talked to Senator Marty last night about this, and we'll bring up Senator Howe's tomorrow after it's been amended and pass that out of committee. So, oh, excuse me, on Thursday. We'll pass it down on Thursday. Today's Tuesday. So before us, we have Senate File 3081. Senator Newman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, you know, the plan, I think, is appropriate to hear, in effect, both bills at the same time because they are so similar. And point of fact, I think by the time we get done today, I think they're going to be identical. I do have a delete all amendment, Madam Chair, the A1, and I believe it would be an author's amendment if we could proceed with that first.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Madam Chair, I'll move the A1 amendment to Senate File 3081.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Kiffmeyer moves the delete everything amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Senator Newman.
Madam Chair, members, I want to give you just briefly a little bit of background that will give you an idea as to why we are here with Senate File 3081. And I will begin with very briefly, the overall funding of the transportation in the state of Minnesota. And I would ask that you keep in mind that currently out of the general fund, which is where this money would be coming from, transportation receives approximately 0.4% of all of the general fund money, and that is down from about 0.5%. So it's the amount of general fund money that we receive in transportation is on the decrease. The other major source of funding for transportation is the Highway User Tax Distribution Fund. That's HUTDF. And that is the constitutionally dedicated funding that we receive. And it comes from our gas tax, license tab fees, auto parts. Sales tax is a small portion currently of $146 million. And then sales tax on autos and car rental and car leasing. There is a statutory, or actually a constitutionally dedicated funding distribution formula. And the first 40% of all of that money that I just mentioned, that goes to transit. And out of the remaining 60%, about 95% of that money goes to the Trunk Highway Fund, to the County Highway Fund, and municipal streets in cities over 5,000. Of the remaining approximately, I think it's 5%, townships, town roads and townships are the same thing. And of that remaining 5%, townships or town roads gets a very small portion of that remaining 5%. Cities under 5,000 do not receive anything out of HUTDF. So that's sort of your starting point. In my view, for years, the transportation system in Minnesota has been woefully underfunded. And when I say the transportation system, members, I'm talking about not just roads and bridges. We have the ports, we have rail freight, we have airports, we have transit, and we have roads and bridges. And all of that funding has to come from someplace. And I just want to give you an example of when I say woefully underfunded. I want to give you an example of just one part of that overall scheme. Bridges. Bridges. Just bridges. Transportation is horribly expensive. It really and truly is. There is a bridge in Duluth right now that they are in the process of building. It's the bridge between Minnesota and Wisconsin. The price tag on it currently, and I expect it to go up, is $1.8 billion for one bridge. One bridge. In addition to that bridge, we've got a whole bunch of bridges, large bridge costs across the state of Minnesota. In addition to that, we have approximately 800 bridges in the state of Minnesota that qualify as small bridges or small funding. Those are bridges that need repair, and the cost of those bridges is $7 million or less. So that's just an example of one tiny little aspect of transportation and why I think that we are so woefully underfunded. So that brings me to Senate File 3081 as amended. And this bill, as will Senator Howe's bill, it shifts auto parts sales tax into HUTDF. Currently, there is $146 million annually that goes into HUTDF out of auto parts sales tax. And we are proposing that we would put 100% of auto parts sales tax into HUTDF. And it may look like or sound like a lot of money, but in the transportation world, it is just a minor little step. To best explain Senate File 3081 as amended. If you would look in your packets, you will find a graphic, members, prepared by Senate Fiscal Analyst Krista Boyd. She is sitting immediately to my left. And begin with line 18. That's the gist of the bill. And what we are proposing
Senator Newman,
to...
is this graph the one that's amended to the A1 amendment? Does
That
it
is
say?
correct.
Okay,
That
very
is
good.
correct.
Thank you.
And if you look down at line, beginning at line 18, that's where you're going to see Senate File 3081 A1 amendment. That's really the gist of this whole bill. So what we are proposing to do is to take all of the auto parts sales tax out of the general fund and put it into HUTDF. And the numbers that you see there reflect what will happen. And essentially, you know, right now we've got 146 million. We're going to be adding in the first year $129 million to that figure. And from there it goes up because it's anticipated the total sales tax on auto parts sales will increase. That really, members, is the bill. And I would ask that you keep in mind my concern over funding for transportation. And specifically, the gas tax in HUTDF makes up approximately 1/3 of all the money that goes into HUTDF. Approximately 1/3. And I'm telling you, the gas tax is in real trouble. And it's in real trouble because of the increased economy in the vehicles that are now being produced, number one. Number two, electric vehicles are here and they're not paying anything into HUTDF. Number three, the price of gas is now $4 and going up. And people are driving less and there will be less gas tax revenue. The gas tax is in real trouble. I believe that the transportation system in Minnesota, the overall system I'm talking about, is vital to the economy of the state of Minnesota, and it is vital to the safety of the traveling public. And so that's why I'm here on this particular bill. And again, it's just one small piece of what I think the state of Minnesota has to do in order to move forward and protect our future. Now, I have withheld the breakdown of how we're going to utilize the 100% auto parts sales tax, and I'm going to leave that to Senator Howe to explain, but I want the committee to know that in Senator Howe's bill, it is a higher percentage. Senator Howe and I think have come to an agreement as to the amount that would go to small cities and townships. I think that he will explain why it's necessary. And members, I want you to understand that I am in complete agreement with what Senator Howe's proposal is. Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Thank you, Senator Newman. Would you rather go to Senator Howe or Ms. Boyd on the forecast sheet on the A1 amendment? What would be your
Maybe we
preference?
could let Senator Howe and then explain his bill, because they're going to be identical.
Okay.
And then Ms. Boyd would be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have, Madam Chair.
Fill in the blanks, you bet. Welcome, Senator Howe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if it's possible, if we could move the A1 amendment and get it in the shape that we would like. We can't move, because we've already got one bill up, we can't move the other one. Well, I will tell you what, currently my bill, with the help of Senator Jasinski's amendment way back when, made it small cities. Well, currently, what we had proposed in the bill was 76% going to the HUTDF and 12% going to each small cities and town road account. At the time we made the 12% estimation, we really didn't know what that would do in dollars. What that really amounted to was over $38 million, and the township folks had requested, the most they'd ever requested was $20 million. So when we took a look at that, and through discussions, we decided that we would try to get them what they asked for and maybe a little bit more. And so in those, when we actually got the numbers, that equated to about 7%. So what we did was we decided to take 86%, put it in the HUTDF fund, because that's a broader distribution to the transportation system, and put 14% split evenly between the small cities account and the town road account, which will give them just over $22 million, which is more than they've ever asked for in the past. What this will do is it'll provide the town road account consistent funding to be able to make catch up with some of the backlog maintenance. If you've ever been out in rural Minnesota and drove some of those township roads and some of those minimum maintenance roads, those aren't minimum maintenance roads, they're no maintenance roads. They just can't, they don't have the funds to do anything with them. And if you realize out in the township with agricultural equipment getting larger and larger as it goes, those roads weren't designed to take the size of equipment that are going down them, so they really take a pounding. They need help on maintaining those roads, and that's what this additional funding and consistent funding will do for them. Now, small cities have never gotten any funding. And what that, you know, they buy gas, they get their products the same way we do. The only way they can fix their roads is by property taxes. So this equates really to some property tax relief for those cities under 5,000, and there's over 800 of those cities. So this is a vast majority of this Minnesota that needs this help, and this will go a long ways in helping those small cities maintain their streets. And Madam Chair and committee, that is the gist of the bill. It will provide $22 million for small cities and town roads, and over $275 million first year for the highway user tax distribution fund. So that in a nutshell, when we get all done with my bill and the amendment, is what it does. I think it's you know, everything we buy at the store, everything that we get anywhere comes by roads. I don't care if you get it from one of the online, it gets to you by a road. So some of that general fund dollars and sales tax should come here. I just think back to when I was working on that vehicle. If I would have just sold that vehicle I was trying to repair and bought a different vehicle, that sales tax would have went to the transportation fund. But because I was buying parts to keep my old vehicle on the road, that money went to the general fund. That to me didn't make sense. That was the gist of the bill way back when in 2016, and that's why we're having this discussion today. It's high time we bring that fund over and actually do what's right for the transportation fund. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Howe. Ms. Boyd, the senators did a good job with this rollout and of the forecast sheet that we have in front of us. Is there anything else that you'd like to add on that?
Madam Chair, thank you. I believe the senators did do a good job explaining it, so I don't know that I have anything to add to the spreadsheet. I just want to maybe make clear on lines 18 through 28 that the top part is the total distribution from 100% of the sales tax. So you'll see on line 22, the general fund is now 0%. And the bottom lines in bold are the revenue change from current law, because there is, as we've said, obviously a dedication of a static amount already in current law to the HUTDF. Madam Chair, Senator Newman has asked me to go to the amendment itself on page 2 where the changes are. What this amendment does relative to the underlying bill on both bills is two things. One, it changes the percentage of the distribution, as has already been discussed, and you'll see that on lines 219 through 223. The other thing it does is add in some technical language for the Department of Revenue that they requested and that we work with on tax staff here. Because we're going from a static amount from general fund to the HUTDF to a percentage basis, there needed to be some language put in for the DOR to estimate that every year. So we put in some numbers as a basis based on the latest forecast, and then allowed that number to grow based on how the general sales tax would grow from year to year. So that's basically on lines 224 to 228.
Thank you, Ms. White. Okay. Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Should we adopt the amendment? I just have more questions regarding the bill as a whole, so I can just wait till that.
Absolutely. The amendment has been adopted.
Okay.
Senator Franzen. Yeah.
So my question, Senator Newman and Senator Howe, and thank you, Madam Chair, is the timing of this bill. I don't believe I heard that in the testimony about why the urgency to do it in a non-budget year when we have a one-time surplus, to do a permanent change in our budget as a state and the implications to our structural balance. And if you can elaborate on that, that's my first question. My second question is what I've been hearing, and I've served on transportation for 8 of my almost 10 years in the Minnesota Senate. So I've heard this argument. I've supported the gas tax. I voted for the gas tax because I agree with you. We do not fund our roads and bridges across our state in a sustainable and fashion, and we have big deficits. And I'm glad that right now we have a federal bill that became law under the Biden administration to bring a lot of money to the state of Minnesota for exactly what you're talking about, roads and bridges and infrastructure. We have to do a down payment on some of that money to bring in basically money that we have to pay in order to draw the federal funds. And we don't know that amount right now, so I'm very concerned to move this bill forward when we should be really bringing money from the federal government, and it could be 200 million, it could be 300 million, it could be more, it could be less. We don't know today, but we know we're gonna have to park some money this session to be able to draw those federal funds for exactly the same purpose. So it doesn't seem to be the right time for this bill until we know how to bring in those federal dollars that we've already sent to the federal government for this purpose that will go to exactly meeting the same needs that you are describing in your bill. So I think it's ill-timed until we know more, and maybe you know more, Senator Newman, because you're the chair of the committee, but I haven't heard exactly what that amount is going to look like for the state of Minnesota to bring in hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe more than the bill you're proposing today. And thirdly, so if you can address that, and then thirdly, the urgency I'm hearing from constituents and across the entire state. I represent a suburban community, but I have family in central Minnesota. I drive up north to leisure at the cabin, so we all use those roads and bridges. So all of us in the metro and suburbs are well aware of the importance of having that transit and transportation, towards all parts of the state. What I'm hearing from them is they're concerned about gas prices. They're concerned about inflation. They're not talking about building that road right now. They're talking about the price on my pocketbook. How can we help them, Minnesotans who actually are paying for those gas prices that are going up, and not because it was, something of our doing in the Minnesota State Legislature, but to the global environment we're in right now. So the gas prices and inflation is the immediate urgency needs that I hear from people in the context of transportation, and this bill doesn't do that. So again, I'm not against the concept of what you're saying. I'm concerned about the implications to our budget in a non-budget year when we have a one-time surplus. Why now? Why not spend some of this money and park it to and pay the state portion of the federal funds that we're expecting for the same purpose you're just talking about? And thirdly, why not do something that directly helps our constituents across the state? I just went to the gas station today, $3.99, but I've seen it higher than that. That's what I hear from folks, and that's where I think we should be talking about the one-time payments to help Minnesotans today when it comes to transportation, gas prices, and others. So if you can address those three things, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Franzen. Senator Newman.
Madam Chair, Senator Franzen, to the first question, why are we bringing this bill now? The answer to that is really quite simple. This is a bill. This is an idea that Senator Howe and I have been working on for years. This isn't some new idea. The first time it came up was in 2017 when I was chair of transportation, and that's the year that we put $146 million out of auto parts sales tax into HUTDF. So this is not a new idea. The reason we brought it specifically this year is because of the coalition that approached me supporting this bill. And that coalition is very important, and it is made up of the trades, it is made up of business interests, it's made up of local government, it is made up of transportation advocacy groups. And that is the specific reason why this year. And I think that groups like the Minnesota Chamber and the operating engineers, I think they're very serious about this. They want this thing passed because for two reasons. Number one, it's construction jobs. And number two, it's good for our business economy. So that's the answer to the first question. Second question, the federal funds. Yes, there are federal funds that are on the horizon. I have a pretty good idea as to what the state match is going to be, but I can absolutely assure you that the federal funds plus the auto parts sales tax shift plus what we currently have in auto parts sales or in HUTF is not going to be enough. We need them. We need all of this. We need the bonding money. In answer to the federal funds, yeah, they're going to be important, but I'll tell you this, they are not nearly going to be as much in transportation infrastructure spending than what most people believe. All you're hearing about is the $4.5 billion that are coming our way. That isn't true. Most of that money is money that we would have received anyhow out of the federal gas tax money. Third question. Where's the urgency and what can we do to help people with gas, the price at the pump? First thing that occurs to me is we could start pumping petroleum and not be dependent on foreign sources of energy. The United States has been and can be again energy independent. And it's going to take the wind, the solar, the petroleum, all of the hydro, it's going to take it all. But one of the ways we can lower the price of gas at the pump is to lower the price of a barrel of oil. The other thing that we could do in order to help people, be it in the urban area or in the metropolitan area or in the country, is let's get them some tax relief. The idea or the notion of a gas tax moratorium, I believe to be a very poor policy. And it's very short-sighted. And I don't believe that any of the members of the coalition that I have just mentioned are in favor of that. But I do believe that if we have meaningful long-term tax relief to the people of the state of Minnesota, that will help them in their ability to not only buy gas, but buy groceries and buy clothing and everything else. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you,
And I have a follow-up,
Senator
Senator.
Newman. Yes.
Thank you,
Senator Franzen. Lopez
Madam
Franzen.
Chair. I appreciate the answers. I still don't think you answered my first question, which was dealing with the structural balancing of our budget. This is a non-budget year. It's a one-time surplus of $9 billion. If we make this change, you're making a change long-term, forever. We normally do that on a budget year, which was last year. What are the implications to this bill long-term, and why is the urgency now when, and I agree, this is not a novel issue. Like I said, I served on transportation with you, Senator, and Howe and Mr. Chair. It's not a new issue, but we should be doing it in a budget year because it has implications to our structural balance of our budget, which right now we know we have a surplus, but we can't guarantee we're going to have a $9 billion surplus next year. and the accounting and all the financial forecasts, those come every year, a few times a year, and we work off of them. So doing this now, you're requesting or suggesting a permanent tax cut, essentially, because anything we do permanently has implications to our tails and long-term viability of our budget. So again, what is the implication to our budget, and how do you ration that, we have the rationalization that, or the reasoning that this is the right timing for this proposal? That's why I'm suggesting, let's focus on the money that's coming into Minnesota. And yes, you're right, some of that is money that we've already expected, but a lot of it is new money coming to Minnesota that we can only attach to it and bring it here is if we pay a down payment for it. And we don't know what that money is. And again, I haven't heard the answer of that as a chair of transportation, what that number is. And we have to make some estimates, and we have to put money aside for that. Otherwise, we can't bring that money in. So again, the timing seems to, let's do that first, because that's immediate need coming to our state, or we miss that opportunity, or we do this and miss that opportunity. And in the end, this is going to cost Minnesotans more because we're not bringing the federal funds. So I'm not saying this is a bad idea necessarily. I just think we should be talking about it when Senator Miller and I talked to the governor yesterday, trying to negotiate some of these items. If we're going to make money decisions, your caucus wants to consider them all at once. Why are we taking this one ahead of the game when we should be making decisions that are going to impact the budget long-term as a whole with all those money implications, tax bill, and things like this at that same time? Again, I am not comfortable making this decision right now without knowing what we need to do for that federal fund match and what your caucus is going to bring forward with regards to tax cuts, because anything we do, if it's permanent, it will have a consequence to next year's budget. And I just want to be clear that it's not because we don't want to have appetite to help Minnesotans across the state. We are happy in the metropolitan area to redistribute funds to the rest of the state. We do that all the time. My city does not get LGA. We pay into it, and it goes to your cities. That is the way we're set up, because we do redistribution of wealth all the time in our state of Minnesota to make sure that the entire state is appropriately funded, whether it's transportation or healthcare, and pay for that hospital in rural Minnesota, because we believe it's one Minnesota. We need to make sure we take care of all this. But to the context of transportation, pushing this bill first without seeing what that federal match is going to look like and what the end game of all the proposals that we're talking about to give immediate relief to Minnesotans, because the tax relief is not immediate.
Okay.
It's not going to come tomorrow. So that's
Thank
my
you.
point. The urgency is tax. It is really about helping people with inflation, the gas tax, and the pay at the pump. And I don't believe this is the right timing for this bill without the rest of the context of the full budget that we're talking about this session.
Thank you, Senator Lopez-Ransons. We do have one more bill, too, that we need to get to, the drought relief bill. Senator Johnson, to this point.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to be brief on a point that Senator Franzen brought up, was that we even though the $9.25 billion is a one-time immediate surplus, we do have a $6.5 billion ongoing structural surplus. And this bill itself is only less than 3% of that ongoing surplus. So, you know, I think we've been painted that this is a one-time surplus and this is going to be an ongoing program. However, we do realize that there are dollars going out that this would be part of. So this is, again, as Senator Miller has said, one of the options, one of the packages that we're going to be dealing with going forward as we look for answers for our state's budget. So I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. I do want to just give a little reference to what happened last year in negotiations, that a lot of the decisions that were made on transportation were predicated off of the infrastructure bill being passed last year. Well, it just recently passed. So there was only $200 million that was budgeted for transportation last year. That was nothing. That's nothing. So I'm very supportive of both of these bills. And I do have a question perhaps for either one of you. Why hasn't the small cities ever under 5,000? Why aren't they in the formula? What is, and because they clearly, I have one city over 12,000, the rest are around 5,000 and under, and they always have projects, and they're always trying to figure out how to get them funded, and they don't have nearly enough money. There's not the property base, there's nothing there.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Newman.
I think you'd have to go back to the language of the Constitution and how that formula was, originally devised. I'm not aware of it being changed since then. So I don't know what the reason is why small cities were left out. But it's a good point. Small cities, the only way they can fix their roads is with real estate taxes, I suppose. And it's really, really important that they somehow get involved in, they got to get in the game. And we have, how many small cities?
There's over 800.
Over 800. So I don't know the answer to your question, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Newman. Senator Howe?
Madam Chair, we do have the state match for the federal funds, and it's $300 million in 22-23 and $393 million in 24-25. So, if you took all of this, it might make the match.
Thank you, Senator Howe. And actually, members, we are going to have, I think, State Director Mingy in to give us a briefing on the infrastructure bill. Should probably have told you that, Mr. Fisher. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I had a couple of questions, and I'll finish up after my comment with regards to the gas pump price. Senator Newman, you hit it right on the head. I guess we're going to blame the war now, but nevertheless, if we were to be pumping our own oil in this country, we'd be self-sufficient. In fact, I think we were one of the biggest exporters before this administration started in Washington. So I think that would be a huge problem. At least that's what I hear out there from my constituents as well. And I guess it makes good common sense. A couple of questions I had, one towards Senator Howe. The townships you talk about are going to get an increase more than what they ask. Is that going to cover the cost, the COLA, you think, of expenses? Is that exactly why you did actually add more to it?
Senator Howe.
For the townships, you actually added another, I think, $2 million.
Senator Howe.
Well, it just worked out that 7% was more than what they asked for, and we figured that was a good start. So yeah, I'm sure it will work into that, but the request was 20 million, and we figured we'd give them just a little bit more than that. It just worked out a good even number.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And small cities, that's a wonderful thing. I mean, what's not in the mixture and what's not talked about is that when they have problems with sewers, which they are now, everything is coming due in these small little towns, 50, 60, 70-year-old infrastructure under the road. That is a huge, huge cost. To give these dollars to the small cities to help cover them, because they have to tear up those roads to do that. I don't think there was a lot of consideration until now, and that's a good thing. That's just a comment. The other question I have, if I can, Madam Chair.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
About electric vehicles, Senator Newman. We haven't been charging electric vehicles yet for them driving on the roads. Am I accurate in saying that? If not, what's moving forward? I know there's got to be something moving forward with regards to a fair tax regards to comparison to gas.
Senator Pratt to this point? Not, okay, I'm sorry. Senator Newman.
Madam Chair, Senator Ingebrigtsen. Go back to the Constitution. The Constitution says that it doesn't refer to a gas tax. It refers to a tax on any substance that is used to propel a motor vehicle. So clearly, electric vehicles are subject to a gas tax if we have the will to impose a gas tax equivalent on electric vehicles. To date, we have not done that. We have imposed a fee of $75 on the renewal of their license tabs, but there is no gas tax equivalent.
Okay.
So what we have tried to do, and I think this might have been Senator Howe's bill, to raise that fee to $229, I think it is, which was a number we received from MnDOT, which would be the gas tax equivalent. folks who buy and drive electric vehicles fought us very hard on that, and we ultimately was not successful. But we're going to take another shot at it. But what's really going to be important, at some point in the future, we are going to have to be in a position where we meter the amount of electricity used to move electric vehicles, and that money generated from the metering has to go into HUTDF. It's the only realistic way to do this.
Madam Chair, I will say that
Senator
we are in discussions with the utilities right now, trying to figure that out. So we are having those discussions as we speak.
Madam Chair, I'll just finish up with one more quick.
Senator Kent to this.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to say, Senator Lopez Franzen has had a bill in the past that would create a task force specifically to evaluate this very question. You know, the entire world is looking at how we convert to this way, and you're raising the point. But this is something that we need to think through, whether it's a flat fee, which has been proposed, versus a mileage base and metering thing, but then you get into privacy issues. It's a complicated conversation, and we need to take it seriously. We should have been doing this before now, but because nobody's opposed to that idea. But the reality is, purchasers of electric vehicles so far pay additional sales tax because it is a higher cost right now, because the costs have not come down yet. You know, I mean, this is an evolving situation as this new technology is coming on board. So yes, we need to have this conversation, because you're absolutely right. We've got to get there, and it is the gas tax, everybody knows, is not the long-term future for this. But we need to be working on it in a systematic way, and I encourage us to keep working on it.
Thank you, Senator Kent. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Real quick, and I'll finish. So that's a great idea. As you know, I held off a large bill with regards to electric vehicles, and it wasn't so much about the electric vehicles as much as it was we were going to mirror these standards that were either coming forward or in the past standards of emission control from California. So maybe we should go to California and find out how they're taxing their electric vehicles out there, being we're so quick to jump onto that bandwagon. That's just a comment, and I'm going to let it go with that. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Ingebrigtsen. Senator Champion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's good to see you.
Good to see you, too. There's donuts behind you.
See this
From Senator Tomassoni.
Yeah. Madam Chair, it is more of a comment before a question for Senator Newman. I was listening to some of the discussion that was happening around the table, then also hearing the important words of Senator Franzen. Senator Newman earlier said something that this is not a new idea, that I think he used the year 2016 or 2017, you know, the amount of time that they've been working on this. And I agree, this is not a new idea, because we've always had crumbling infrastructure, that there's a reason why there needs to be a dedicated revenue source for roads, bridges, and transportation, right? And I wholeheartedly support that. And we too are serious about roads and bridges and transportation. So I don't want that to get lost here, because I think it's important for folks to understand it. But I think that that we have not a new idea, but the wrong solution. I think that the solution has to be a sustainable one, and everyone seems to keep talking about this, you know, surplus. And then I heard my good friend who's sitting to my left say to me that that there's $6 billion, but I think it's 5.3 billion going forward, some number like that. But the idea is that there's a number, right, and there's something that goes forward. But what this bill does, and doesn't take into consideration as we think in terms of the ongoing solution, or even the ongoing projected surplus, is the fact that it has a real impact on the general fund. So I remember Senator Franzen asking that question to Senator Newman, like, what's the implication of this bill on the general fund? Well, let's be really clear that the general fund funds education. We understand that we've been hearing from a cross-section of people that education is not fully funded, that we don't include, you know, inflation. So anything that we put forward, we are not really doing that in real time. It really impacts health and higher ed, all those other things that we do believe are very important as well. So I do think that we have to stop siloing these things and really look at it as a comprehensive approach, and how do we do it in order to make sure that our quality of life is improved. So I think that we need a sustainable solution, and I don't think this is it. So if we take away things from the general fund, then we're taking away things from our children. If we take away things from the general fund, we're taking away that potential reimbursement rate increase for long-term care facilities and workers. When we take away from the general fund, then we take away from child care assistance and those folks who says that we need to have a higher reimbursable rate. When we take away from the general fund, then we also take away from teachers. So there is impact and things that we should think about, and that's all I'm saying. So, Senator Newman, did you take those things into consideration when you were thinking about taking money from the general fund and applying it in this particular place? Did you think about all those things that we all believe to be important?
Senator Champion, is that a rhetorical question, or do you really seriously want an answer to? Because
well, Madam Chair, it is a rhetorical question because I think that he thinks about these things, but I think this bill ignores it. But I do think he thinks about these things.
I do think he thinks about those too. Thank you. Senator Marty.
Thank you. I was actually just going to comment on the discussion about the small cities allocation, and I think Senator Newman's point that it hasn't been changed in years. I've always represented a city of under 5,000, and there are some in the metro area, and always wondered, the unfairness of why they're excluded. So I think that's a very appropriate thing to be addressing. I don't think it has to tie in with all the other things. On the electric vehicles, Senator Kent said what I was going to say, only more articulately, and that is that electric vehicle owners have been paying, again, because they're higher. There was a calculation then a couple of years ago that even if the vehicle is used for 10, 12 years on the road, that the higher sales tax they're paying because the higher price of the car is actually more than they would have been paying in gas tax if it was a comparable car. And so that plus the $75 fee or whatever we got is something that the main thing is, how do we figure out what's a fair allocation in the future, because we're going to need to deal with it. And I do agree that the study would be a much more wise way to do it. And then finally, since Senator Champion made so many excellent points, I think that's my one point that I'd like to close on this with, is that I'm still frustrated that we're looking at, we look at one thing after another coming through here and not in context of the overall budget. And that's why I think we would have been helpful to have budget targets and think it through from the beginning, from the big picture, which is what this committee is to do. But I have a little bit of problem with the idea that we're going to just set aside this chunk of money for here, because those are urgent needs. But as Senator Champion eloquently said, we have many other urgent needs as well, and I'm not seeing them being addressed, the education ones particularly, but many others. So not that it's not an urgent need for a lot of things in the roads and bridges, it's a lot of needs in the transit, a lot of needs in all the other areas that we're not looking at except this piecemeal approach, which is troubling to me on that point.
Thank you, Senator Marty. And Mr. Nowlan said it was Falcon Heights. Is that correct?
Lauderdale.
Okay, you're wrong.
Falcon Heights is over 5.
Okay, thank you. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be brief. Just, I think Senator Johnson covered many of the points that I wanted to make, but just to touch on the gas tax moratorium, as Senator Newman said, a gas tax moratorium does not build or repair 1 inch of road. Gas tax moratorium does not fix a single bridge in this state and does not provide additional assistance to people who ride transit. It just supplants spending that was going into that fund that would now be covered. And what Senator Newman is trying to do, and what I appreciate and what we heard in Transportation Committee, was this is a long-term solution to a long-term problem. And Senator Howe, I think, brought an interesting discussion and a much-needed discussion, because not only are we talking about small cities, but we're talking about support to townships. And Senator Howe, I think the number I heard, if I recall, was townships manage 45% of the lane miles we have in the state. And that's a big, big number. And so I appreciate Senator Newman and Senator Howe bringing together transportation advocates, transit advocates, labor across the board in agreement on this bill. And I think it's vitally important for our state and the safety of our citizens.
Thank you, Senator Pratt. Senator Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to refocus. This is a long-term solution for something that is never going away. As long as you would like food brought to your grocery stores, you're going to need roads. As long as there are farmers who are harvesting, happy Ag Day, everybody, who are harvesting and trying to get their crops to market, they will be using township roads, which Senator Howe is addressing. This isn't temporary. Senator Newman and Senator Howe have taken a very thoughtful approach to long-term stable funding for something that needs to be a long-term stable resource in the state of Minnesota. How do kids get to the schools that you want to fund? School buses on roads. How do ambulances get to the hospitals? Roads. How do nurses, CNAs, dietitians get to the nursing homes that you want to fund? Roads. So this is long-term stability for an asset that is not going away and needs to be maintained to meet some pretty foundational needs in our society.
Thank you, Senator Benson. Senator Howe, Senator Newman, I think if I could ask you to wait on your closing comments till Thursday. I would like to invite you both back, please. And I have a few comments too that I'd like to close with on this also, because we are going to lay over your bill, Senator Newman, right now, and then we're going to pick up Senator Howe's bill, and then we are going to vote Senator Howe's bill out on Thursday. But we are very short of time. We do have a serious drought relief bill that needs to get out of this committee today.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Senator Newman.
I will not be able to be here on Thursday.
Okay.
So
Well, then
could I take
please.
30 seconds?
Yeah, absolutely. Take as much time as you want.
I appreciate that. I wanted to just respond to Senator Champion's rhetorical question. He is correct that this is a bipartisan issue and that we should be working together. On the comment that this is a wrong solution, I would disagree. This is a partial solution and just a partial solution. And I want to remind everyone concerning his thoughts on robbing the general fund, that as of right now, as Senator Benson pointed out, everybody benefits from a good transportation system, whether you drive a car or not. And right now, the transportation system is being supported by user fees while everybody benefits. And at some time, we are going to have to recognize that fact and take some money out of the general fund in order to supplement the user fees for our transportation system. Final comment, and with respect to what Senator Marty said and what Senator Kent said on the issue of electric vehicles are more expensive and therefore they should somehow be excused from paying a gas tax. Using that same logic, if you buy a Bentley or a Lamborghini, they would be excused from having to pay a gas tax. It's an argument I've heard many, many times, and it doesn't register very high on my scale. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Newman. And I guess I would just like to thank you for being such a principal advocate and the cheerleader for this for a very, very long time in your work in transportation. I know you're not running for re-election, and you have been a bulldog and a very, very good, I mean, rightly so. You are trying to clean up this fund that has been big. The commitment of this fund is not being used as it was intended. Very similar to the Healthcare Access Fund, as Senator Benson can attest to. So thank you for bringing this forward. I think it's a perfect year to do this with the budget surplus that we have. I know it's not a budget year, but this is the time to do it and straighten this fund out. With that, we're going to lay Senate File 3081 on the table, and we're going to bring up Senate File 3086 before us. And Senator Howe, briefly to that, and then we'll lay this one over too. And you have the A1 amendment, Senator Howe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move, well, I
No,
can't
you can't
it.
move, but what is the A1 amendment?
The A1 amendment is the piece that actually does the distribution, reduces the amount to the townships and small cities.
So the A1 amendment is identical to?
It's identical.
To, perfect, okay. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Madam Chair, I move that A1 amendment.
Senator Ingebrigtsen moves the A1 amendment. Are there any questions, comments? No? All those in favor of the A1 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. The A1 amendment is adopted. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you,
members.
Senator
Thank you.
Newman. With that, Senator Howell, we'll wait for your closing comments and work on Thursday morning, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Thank you.
With that, we're going to lay Senate File 3086 onto the table. Before us now, members, we have Senate File 3479. Oh, and Senator Howe and Senator Newman, I will let Laura Bach know where you can get those donuts for Thursday. Just joking. Pushing donuts. Senator Westrom, welcome.
Madam Chair, thank you.
We do have amendment here. Members, we have, it's a little bit of a dance we do have to go through here, but Senator Westrom to the bill, and then we'll take a look at your A7 amendment.
Madam Chair, I guess if you would want to move the bill and the A7, then I would explain it as the A7, but I can go through it otherwise and then do the A7,
But
whichever
you know what, Senator Westrom, why don't you talk about the bill? It's
Okay.
the A7 is not a delete all. It's just, and then we can talk about that.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, I'll take the liberty to review the bill as we anticipate with the A7, because I think that'd be the best use of time and really get to the heart of the bill. Members, this is a farm drought relief bill dealing with some aid, a shot in the arm, as I've called it, to our farm communities that were hit hard with the lack of rain last spring and summer, and even into the fall in some areas. This is a $10 million appropriation. This would be targeted largely to those with livestock or specialty crops. Crop farmers, grain and soybean, have crop insurance, which is a safety net that livestock does not have. And the reason this shot in the arm is being proposed is because of the lack of pasture, the lack of forage. The first crop of hay for many farmers was half of what they usually have. That's usually your biggest crop on the farm. Usually you can get 3 crops, some get 4. Second crops were very minimal. Third crops also were very small and short. And so what that results in for farmers that are raising livestock, one, if they've got them on pasture in the summer, they count on that grass growing normal through the summer and fall. They supplement with a little bit of hay, but usually they don't have to get into their forage stockpiles until late fall and through the winter. Many of them have short supplies of forage stacks, forage supplies, and we're starting to feed them early in the season, August, September, rather than November, December. And so that continual squeeze is coming. Some farmers have actually sold cattle last fall just because they didn't have the ability to feed them or find reasonable priced hay close enough to truck it here. Trucking becomes a very big expense when you're hauling hay or other forage, silage, some of the haylage. Those are all the things that our farmers were short. And so what this does is a $10 million appropriation for that drought relief to target our farmers primarily that have been hit by different disasters, but mainly the drought. $7 million of this would be directed towards grants to the farmers, up to $5,000 grants for damages that they experienced because of the drought. In most cases, members, this is going to be just a fraction of the real cost, but a significant help to maybe get through couple more weeks or a couple more months of paying feed bills that are maybe behind, or maybe they've already robbed their property tax bills or money to pay the May property tax coming up because they've had to buy feed. I've got a constituent in my district that talked about their dairy operation. They've had to drive down an hour and a half each one way to the Renville sugar beet plant, and for the first time they've been feeding wet beet pulp, mixing it in their TMR ration. They have to go every week because it's wet. They can't stockpile it. It's a lot of extra expense to haul it that far rather than just from the back barn or down the road at the neighbors that you might be buying hay from normally. And so they're doing this every week, and it's just a week-to-week effort that they're going through to try to find enough feed. So this would be $7 million in those grants. 5.5 million of the 7 would be targeted towards livestock producers. 1.5 million would be targeted to specialty crop producers or livestock as a part of the $7 million. There's another $1.5 million towards RFA, which has had low interest loans. They have just under $1.5 million out that they've helped with farmers to help basically keep their cash flow, give them some operating credit to help buy the feed or the forage they need. And so this would replenish that $1.5 million towards those low interest loans. And so members, that would be $8.5 million. We also have knocking on our door the avian influenza, the high path influenza, that is a big concern in the turkey poultry world. The VDL, the Veterinary Diagnostic Lab at the U of M, is asking for an upgrading equipment to be able to more rapidly process tests and have more capacity. For $1.5 million, we have allocated $1 million in this towards that effort, albeit we do not intend or expect that we can probably get this here in time to deal with this exact avian influenza outbreak, but it reminds us and brings us to the point where we know this is something that looms from year to year. Last one being about 6-7 years ago, as you recall, when we established the emergency response account for the Department of Agriculture, which is the last $500,000 members in this bill is the $500,000 supplemental money to the emergency response account in the Department of Agriculture with clarifying language that they can use it for testing, water testings for avian influenza in the poultry industry to try to have a quicker read or detection system in place. And so that is the $10 million, Madam Chair, in the bill after the A7 amendment. There was a $500,000 out of that $7 million that originally passing Ag Committee had targeted some of the deer farmers that are finding themselves in the very same situation with the need for a shortage of feed and forage for their deer. A different unique situation with the DNR stop movement order that was in place last fall and really hamstrung many of their income revenue opportunities, and yet they still have the same need to feed their deer, i.e. livestock as well, and they are competing for the same type of hay and forage that our other cattle and livestock producers are. So, but the A7 amendment, to just touch on that before we get there, that will change that, because we've talked to some people and there's some things we're trying to work out on that yet. So at this point, we would just not have that in the final bill, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Westrom. That was a very good description of the A7. Ms. Grunwald, is there anything that you would like to add to
Madam Chair and members? No, Senator Westrom covered the bill with the A7 added.
Great, thank you very much. And Ms. Painter?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, Painter.
That's okay. I don't have
and
anything to add either.
Senator Westrom did a great job, too.
Yeah, he does.
Super, thank you. We do have Commissioner Peterson here, though, I would like to bring up, and got a text from him about 5:35 a.m. the other morning.
He's probably feeding his horses, Madam Chair.
That's right. And I'm not complaining, I'm just saying, you're the hardest working commissioner. Welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for responding right away. So I appreciate that. And Senator Westrom did a great job laying this out. If you go right back before the state fair time, you think about 80% of Minnesota was in a severe drought. 50% of Minnesota was in an extreme drought or a D3, and then 10%, mostly in Senator Johnson's district and Nutke's district, was in a D4 drought, which is the worst drought we've had since 1988. The other thing I just say is, like, I really appreciate trying to move this soon, because, you know, by the time we put our RFP together and then put it out, farmers apply, you know, it's going to be a month to 6 weeks, and so the sooner we can do that, I really do feel strongly we can help farmers pay a bill or two. You think about the hay prices right now. I go to auctions myself, just even this last week, and try to look. Prices have really gone up, and it's going to be a couple of months, and the more farmers we can hold on to. January 1st of this year, our hay stock showed that we were down 35% from last year at this time, and we had the third lowest hay stocks on hand since 1950. So I really do appreciate you addressing this. The other piece of this bill that Senator Westrom has in here is the help for avian influenza, and that, as he said, is knocking on our door. We're totally surrounded by South Dakota, Iowa, Wisconsin, and those are in some of their bigger operations, and it's just probably here. We just haven't found it yet. And many of you were all here in 2015, remember the hit that our state and our farm economy took on that. So with that, I appreciate your consideration for this important legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any questions for the Commissioner? Really appreciate you being here, and I know this bill is up, I believe, Thursday on the floor. Perhaps I'm wrong, but I think it's supposed to be coming fairly soon, so. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Madam Chair, I move the A7 amendment to Senate File 3479.
Any questions on the A7 amendment? All those in favor of the A7 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Okay, Mr. Bodern, can you explain what we're going to do next, please?
So, Madam Chair and members, the committee has House File 3420, which is the companion bill to this bill, in its possession. Now that the committee has considered Senate File 3479 and amended it, I think what you would want to do is lay Senate File 3479 as amended on the table, take up House File 3420, and then take a motion to put House File 3420 in the shape the committee would like it, which is to delete everything and insert the contents of Senate File 3479, followed by the motion to pass House File 3420.
Are there any questions on that? Okay, Senator Johnson.
Thank you very much. I make that motion to lay House File.
Like Senate File 34?
Yep, Senate File 3420 on the table.
3479?
Exactly.
On the table.
On the table.
On that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Senator Johnson.
So I think I'm reading this right now. So I'll move to amend 3420 by deleting everything and inserting the contents in Senate File 3479 as amended.
And that's your motion?
That's the motion.
Okay, on Senator Johnson's motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion prevails. Senator Johnson, one more motion. Senator Johnson.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
No. Oh.
Well, I move House File 3420 as amended be recommended to pass and place in general orders.
Senator Johnson moves House File 3420 as amended be recommended to pass and placed on general orders. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members.
Right on time. Members, we are meeting tomorrow, and we have 3 bills up on the agenda. Senator Howe's Senate File 1040. Boy, you better bring donuts. Senator Coleman's Senate File 2644, and Senator Root's 2819. With that, thank you, members. Senate File Committee is, or Senate Finance Committee is Senator Marty.
Just a question about Thursday. We know we have the Howe bill up, but I haven't seen anything else posted. Has something been posted since then, or is that it?
Yes, Senator Marty, it's still in question. I might have a bill up that day. It would be the stadium refinance bill. but there is some work that's still being worked on. So we will let you know as soon as possible.
Thank you,
Probably
but
by
it'll-
noon.
like, It won't be before, besides the stadium refinancing and the Howell bill, that's it, as far as you know?
Yes, yes, that is true, Senator Marty.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, Senate Finance Committee is adjourned.